Welcome to the Pivotal Point with Dwayne Barnes, the space where truth gets real, healing gets personal, and stories spark transformation. Today's episode is a special one. For this conversation, I stepped into the guest seat, invited by Dwayne Osterlind, host of the Addicted Mind podcast, for a raw and honest dialogue about a topic that runs deep for me: addiction, identity, and the long road home to self-love. We unpack the journey behind my book, Their Eyes Were Never on Me, One Man's Painful Journey with Self-Addiction, and how addiction doesn't always look like substances. Sometimes it's the need for approval, the need to disappear, the addiction to being whoever the world wants you to be. This episode is about trauma, truth, and transformation. And I'm grateful to Dwayne and the Addicted Mind for holding space for this conversation and for allowing me to share it with you here on The Pivotal Point. To learn more about their work and explore more powerful conversations around recovery and healing, visit theaddictedmind.com. Let's get into it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Addicted Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Osterlind, and I'm glad you're here for another episode that dives deep into stories of transformation, healing, and resilience. Today, we're joined by someone whose life and work truly embody those values: actor, writer, and creative visionary Dwayne Barnes. You might recognize him from his powerful performances, like his unforgettable role in the cult classic Menace to Society, or his appearance in Grey's Anatomy, NCIS Los Angeles, and Big George Foreman alongside Oscar winner Forrest Whitaker. Gamers might know him as the voice of Rydell from the Need for Speed Unbound franchise. But beyond the screen, Dwayne Barnes is a storyteller with a mission. His debut book, Their Eyes Were Never on Me, unpacks the raw complexities of self-addiction and limiting beliefs, offering readers a candid exploration of emotional healing and personal growth. Today, Dwayne will share his incredible story, one of breaking free from the chains of self-doubt and rediscovering authenticity. His insights, honesty, and compassion are bound to leave an impact, and I'm certain his story will resonate with many of you. But before we get into it, a quick word from our team. If you've been enjoying the Addicted Mind podcast and find it helpful on your recovery or self-discovery journey, please consider leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. Your support helps more people find these stories of hope and transformation. And I want to let you know, our Addicted Mind Plus community is now open. If you're ready to take the next step in your recovery and growth, visit theaddictedmind.com/community and join a supportive community designed specifically to help you be your best self. And as Dwayne shares in this episode, don't be afraid to face the hard work. It's in doing the work that we find the path to our best, most authentic selves. All right, everyone, let's get started. Here's my conversation with Dwayne Barnes. All right, everyone, welcome to the Addicted Mind podcast. Today, I have Dwayne Barnes, and we're going to talk about your book, Their Eyes Were Never on Me, One Man's Painful Journey with Self-Addiction. So, Dwayne, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your history. We're going to get into, you're an actor in Hollywood. You've written this book as well, and you're bringing this to help people and to support people and to bring people up. So I'm excited to talk about this idea of self-addiction. So jump in.
Yes. I'm excited to be here. Well, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I was born to teenage parents. My mother was 15 going on 16 when she had me, and she had my twin brothers who are older at 14. So by the age of 16, she had 3 kids. And then she had my younger brother at 18. So she had 4 boys.
Wow.
Yes, 4 boys before 18. Her and my father, they didn't stay together long. I don't remember him being in the home very much. She took up with a stepfather. He was a part of our lives for all of our lives. And it was just a very chaotic, abusive home. You know, my mother became an alcoholic, deep alcoholic. Then she turned to heroin. Then she turned to pills. And then eventually she turned to crack.
Oh.
And the crack situation ended up basically taking her life, literally. I moved out here when I was 19 because I wanted to get free from all of that dysfunction. I would call myself the hero child. I was an A student, National Honor Society, just winning everything. I was that one who's like, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to use everything I got, all of my talents, all of my skills to be seen, to be heard. And so when I moved out here to California, I moved to Hollywood. 2 weeks later, when I moved out here, my mother sent me a letter, gave me a letter. And the letter, she basically apologized for everything that she's ever done. She's like, I'm so sorry. I took the coward's route out, but you remind me of what I could have been. And she said, go out there and be a star for me. I'll see you on TV.
Wow. Is that how you got into Hollywood? Was that your goal right away to get into acting and to be an actor?
Well, the arts saved my life. When I was in high school, I was led to acting by a mystical situation. Like I was always singing most of my life, but I was in like a Spanish class and I heard their drama announcements, and I wanted to go, but I didn't go. But there was a student in class. She was like, I think you should try acting. And so basically she took me down to the acting teacher, introduced me to her, and I just fell in love with it. It became my therapy because I was able to scream and holler and laugh and, just do things that I wasn't normally allowed to do in my environment. Those things weren't allowed. So I just excelled in the arts. So
it was like an outlet for you in like what you were describing earlier. I mean, I can't imagine the chaos, the fear, the trepidation growing up in that environment with both of your parents struggling with addiction, other siblings. I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you had the space to almost in a way, I think you were saying earlier, be seen, but also to express.
Yes. And I think I'm telling you, I feel like that was the gift that my higher power gave me. A lot of people ask me, like, why did you get out and your brothers still struggle? Because my 3 brothers, they were in and out of jail and in and out of alcoholism. And I just excelled. And I think it was because of that creative gift that God gave me. And so that gift is what made me decide at 19. I said, I'm not even going to finish college. Me and a friend, we decided we're going to stop college and go to Hollywood because the time is now. And so my mother gave me that letter. And 2 weeks after I got here, she went into a coma.
Oh my gosh.
Diabetic. Yeah.
I can't even imagine getting that letter. I mean, to get that from your mom, just telling you, like you said it earlier, I took the cowardly way out. I didn't face my stuff, my darkness, if you want to call it. And to get that as a kid, I'm just imagining that was incredibly powerful.
Oh my God. And here's the thing I wanted to say. My mother was actually a very intelligent woman. Like she graduated at 15 with me in her stomach. And she was triple promoted. You know what I'm saying? So she was highly intelligent. So that's why she said, you remind me of me, like you're using your intelligence, you're using your gifts, but I allowed my traumas to strand me, to tank me. And so that letter, man, I cried so hard on that plane. Oh my God, because I had never gotten that level of compassion from her because she was caught up in her addiction. She wasn't being a parent. Yeah. She wasn't a parent to me. You know what I'm saying? So that letter just floored me. And it's like I said, when I got out here 2 weeks later, my grandmother called me and said, they said your mother would never walk, talk, or eat again on her own. And that was, oh my God, that was the hardest moment of my life. And so at that point, I had to make a decision. Do I go back to Detroit and stay in that environment and help my mother and my grandmother, or do I do what she said in that letter, where she said, go out there and be a star for me. I'll see you on TV. And I made the choice to stay out here in California. And my grandmother took my mother into her home and cared for her. Had never been a nurse, had never done anything like that before, but she didn't trust the doctors and the nurses because she said they wanted my mother to die. And I think my grandmother got a little delusional, that mother's delusion where they're telling you, hey, she's not going to be able to make it. And she just, and it did a lot of damage to myself and my siblings because my mother stayed alive for 15 years. Wow.
Yeah, that would be so hard. I mean, it sounds like your mom, making that decision, do I stay in Hollywood and pursue this or do I go? I mean, in a way, your mom gave you that gift and said, stay, what a generosity out of her own pain, I guess. That's the way I was looking at it, but that's pretty powerful.
And, I never realized that until this conversation, until this moment right here, because I used to feel a little guilty, like I should have went back and was I doing anything wrong? But I'm like, no, she gave you that
it's like she wanted you.
Yeah. She's
like she knew.
Yeah. She was like, don't let anything stop you. Go out there and do it. Don't even let me stop you. And
what an incredible gift. So as you were in Hollywood and you started to find success, tell me about that part. And, you're putting all this energy into it and you're starting to get that success and you're starting to see that you're starting to get on shows. You're starting to get into things.
Well, Dwayne, my life is it's like a movie. It's like a book. My mother was on crack. The first movie or the second movie I auditioned for was a role called Menace to Society. And I played a crack addict.
Wow.
And I remember I got that audition because the character had to say that line, I'll suck your dick for the crack or whatever. And I remember I called my grandmother. I'm like, should I do it? She was like, yeah, that ain't you. Just play the role. So lo and behold, I auditioned for it. I booked it and I was excited because I got a chance to act. But never in a million years did I know that was going to be the most triggering experience of my life. Never did I realize that so many people would find that character so degrading and so disgusting. And I would hear people mention it to me and mention it to other people. And 35 years later, the movie is still a cult classic. People are talking about it. So it was a very challenging thing because a lot of people at the time didn't know that my mother was in a coma from crack.
Wow.
And so when they're telling me, oh, that role is so degrading, I'm like, oh, well, my life is degrading. My mother is degrading. So it's just
like those fusing together. Triggering that shame. And it's like they fuse together, even though it's a role, it's personal too. And being seen like that, I didn't think of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense too. How I'm just imagining how hard that would be to have all of that going on at the same time.
Dwayne, I don't even know how I'm standing. I really don't. And I really believe, I know that there's a higher power. I know that there has to be. Because when I look back over my childhood, my teenage life, living out here, that role, so much shame, so much anxiety, so much stress, so much pressure, so much to overcome. But I'm here. I'm here.
You're here.
And I'm here to tell my story. You know, I'm here to be of service to someone else. And so that's why I know that all things work together for your good, you know.
Yeah.
If you do the work.
there. But if you do the work, but sometimes that work is so hard. So let's talk about you getting to that work and starting to say, okay, I got to dig in and I got to start looking at my stuff.
Yes. First of all, I never thought I had an addiction. I never even thought I had a problem because, you know, what my family was going through. I just felt like, oh no, they got addictions and they have a problem. I didn't think that I had a problem. I just thought I was a good, helpful guy and I'm out helping people. And I didn't even know what the power of being in a movie. I didn't even know that power. I didn't know people were looking at me as a celebrity. And so people were befriending me, but I didn't think they were befriending me to take. I thought they were befriending me because they wanted to be friends. But I found myself coaching. I found myself lending money. I just found myself being like a people pleaser to the core. Like my phone was buzzing. People help me, help me, help me. People betraying me, betraying me, betraying me. I got involved in this, what I would call a cult religion. And I was a leader and it was just, people were under me and I was just going crazy. And eventually I decided to seek therapy. And Dwayne, I went to this therapist and based on a recommendation of a friend, I talk about it in the book too, based on a recommendation of a friend, and the therapist would fall asleep on me.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, consistently over and over and over again. And I swear I was kind of confused. I was like, maybe he's doing this on purpose, like this. And I was so broken and I just wanted to be heard. So deeply.
That makes sense.
I would just look out and just allow him to sleep. I would just ignore it for a while. And then eventually I brought it up to him. I said, hey, you're sleeping. And then he was like, well, what am I doing? What are you saying? It's putting me in a reverie. What? And so he was kind of gaslighting me in a sense.
So he put it back on you and started, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you had that experience.
But Dwayne, I went for 3 years.
Wow.
I went for 3 years and that's how broken I was. That's how much I just wanted somebody to see me and hear me. And it took me going to a life coach and she was just like, no, that is not okay. Because he was also doing something else. He kept looking at my crotch area every time. I mean, consistently. And again, Dwayne, I was thinking, well, he knew I got molested in high school by my music teacher. Maybe he's doing that to trigger me to respond to him. I mean, I was just, because I couldn't imagine that someone would be so unprofessional. So in my mind, I'm trying to make it make sense.
Well, you know, when we have a lot of trauma, like you talked about in our early childhood, we can lose the ability to trust ourselves and our own intuition. And we can lose that. And so we automatically go to the place of like, oh, it must be me. I must be doing something wrong. And not that maybe this other person is not doing the right thing. And I can totally understand that too. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, now you make it clearer because that's exactly what I was doing. Because at that time, I did not trust myself because I was surrounded by a lot of manipulative, gaslighting people. And they were in my family. You know, people who are addicted are very, people are very manipulative, very gas. So
you didn't know, you didn't understand that. You don't have the ability to see it. And then that gets taken advantage by certain people who will do that. So let's get to the point where you started, I got to write my book. I've got to put this down on paper. I've got to share my story.
Yes. Well, I actually ended up finding a brilliant therapist that I'm working with now. And he began to see me. He began to listen to me. He began to make space for me and not, because a lot of therapists, a lot of helpful people, they want to jump in and start helping. And sometimes it's like, no, that does more damage. So he kind of allowed me space to be seen and heard, even right, wrong, or indifferent. He just allowed me that space. And I feel like once I got that space, I started to heal. I started to recover. And I went into a 12-step program. I did Codependency Anonymous. I got a sponsor. I was working with I did the steps twice.
Wow. So you started doing the work.
Doing the work begrudgingly.
And it sounds like this. Yeah, begrudgingly. I mean, doing the work sometimes really sucks, but it's really hard. But it sounds like, you had this therapist who could finally point you in the right direction. And I like that you say that, maybe that first therapist, not the right fit, is wrong, but you don't give up. You keep going until you find that right person that can support you, whether it's a therapist, coach, 12-step sponsor, whatever. But it sounds like you started to do that.
Yes, I started to do that. And I'm going to get to the point. I started to do that. And also I kept thinking, are you a narcissist? And I kept asking my therapist and because I had other therapists before I got to this one. I had to kiss a lot of frogs to get to this one. But I kept on saying, am I a narcissist? And they kept on saying, no, the DSM, and don't know you're not, and narcissists won't seek help, and this, that, and the other. And so one day, I do a lot of the serenity prayer. I turn my life, my day, everything over to my higher power. Walk through me, talk through me, live through me, breathe through me, think through me. So one day, something dropped into my spirit, and it said, you may not be a narcissist, but what about a self-addict? And I thought I had invented that term. I was like, oh, a self-addict. It makes sense. So I Googled about it. And I was like, this is exactly what I have been dealing with. This is exactly what I have been dealing with. And self-addiction is being addicted to the version of yourself that no longer serves you.
But you're holding that identity tight because you can't let it go.
It's tight because it's all I knew. All I knew is negative self-talk. All I knew is limiting beliefs. All I knew is repeating destructive habits. That's all I knew. Me. And it's not really about having an inflated sense of myself like it sounds. It's more about being trapped in these cycles that basically prevent my growth and my healing. I'm just trapped in survival mode. Like everything is survival. And it's because, and that's why I named the book, Their Eyes Were Never on Me.
Right.
Because my parents, my family, their eyes weren't on me. They were on their addictions. And so I'm like, if their eyes aren't on me, I have to be hyper focused on my survival and my needs and trying to get them met. So I was trapped in that reality.
I love that. I love that you're saying that because I think so many people that grow up in trauma, like you said, they aren't seen, they aren't noticed. And then when we're not noticed, it's like, we have to go into survival mode. We have to turn that view inward to our fear, our loss, our pain, whatever's going on. And I totally get that. That makes so much sense to me. And I love how you put those pieces together. I think that's an incredibly important idea.
And I definitely want to say it's higher power led. That's why all of this, me talking to you right now, this is all my higher power. And it's like, I have to go beyond my limited beliefs. I have to start breaking free from that. And I feel like that's what, now that I know it's self-addiction, because I feel like the trauma, I don't know if you know about apple cider vinegar. What I say, apple cider vinegar has the mother, and you got to have the mother. I feel like, the mother is like the gunk of stuff that's at the bottom, and I guess it creates the potency of the apple cider vinegar. So I look at the trauma as the mother, and all of these self-addictions, narcissism, alcoholism, all of those things are the babies of the trauma. And I feel like once one finds whatever their the baby from the trauma, then they can start healing the drama.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And so just to make sure I understand, it's like when we're trapped in that self-addiction, it's like we're putting our eyes internally, focusing on our own pain, our own hurt because of that deep trauma at the bottom of the bottle, like you described, that apple cider vinegar bottle and all of the stuff at the bottom, all that trauma. And so we get obsessed with ourselves, and we get stuck in those limiting beliefs and that construct of the self. And it's so hard to break out of that.
Yes. And since I've written a book and since I've gotten this knowledge, now I kind of know what it is. And so now I do my emotional healing work like in the morning, right before I get out of bed. And I found this tool from James Bradshaw. He wrote this book called Healing the Shame That Binds You. And basically, it's like allowing myself to feel my triggers every morning. Like I feel like my higher power bring me a memory, and then I stay in that feeling. I feel it, I think about it, and then one day I go back to it, and now the trigger isn't triggering. And so I feel like that is where the healing lies. And so since I've been doing that, I only do that in the morning, and then I allow myself to live. I allow myself to see the world, to communicate, as opposed to being, why are they thinking about this? And what's going to happen? And how are my bills going to be paid? And what if I get on this podcast and I say the wrong thing? And it's like, it's that constant, it's like, stop that. Stop it. Now I know that's your addiction. Like now I know what it is. That's how you get high. You're not going to get high off of that anymore. You're going to get high off of knowing and trusting that you're valuable, you're worthy, you're okay, you're being taken care of by your higher power. Like consistently reminding myself that, yes, your parents couldn't take care of you, but your higher power has always taken care of you.
And how did it, as you're going through this journey, how did, being a writer and an actor, how did that influence this journey and being in the entertainment industry and kind of, the impact it had on this idea and this self-addiction?
I started by saying that the art saved me, but then I got to Hollywood and I realized that the arts was like an alcoholic who was working as a bartender. The arts had every trigger imaginable, every painful experience imaginable for me. Abandoning all of my childhood triggers were being triggered by this town. And so it was horrible for my self-addiction. Horrible for it. It influenced it terribly, especially when I didn't know what was going on. But now that I know what's going on, now I can see like, oh, okay, that they're not abandoning you. They're just making choices for their creative visions. You know what I'm trying to say? So now I can work myself through that. But before, it was horrible.
Yeah, I would imagine, if you're constantly in that threat state, that self-addiction state where you're, it's kind of like you're on your own pain, that everything is about that self-addiction. Everything comes through that lens. And in the entertainment industry, I mean, it's a tough industry to be in, a lot of rejection, especially as an actor. I mean, you're going rejection. And if you have a lot of those wounds inside of you, I'd imagine that stuff's being triggered constantly.
Yeah, but the thing is, I made a lot of money off of those triggers. I did, because I'm telling you, most of the characters I was playing was like very broken, angry, hurt, losing their family members. Like, so I got a chance. That's why I say it was a good thing, because I got a chance to like get those feelings out, and I got a chance to get paid for that. But after a certain time, it's like, okay, you're doing damage to yourself. And I found myself with a burst appendix in the hospital, almost died. This is all in the book, almost died from it. And then it's like, no, you have to do something different. You can't rely on that pain to get you
Right.
paid. Not in that way, you know?
Right. You had to transcend that because it was so personal to you. These characters that you were playing, I mean, they were almost like a part of yourself, not yourself, but a part of yourself that you realized that it was actually causing you more harm to do this, not in a frame set, because you're still struggling, I guess, in that idea of self-addiction until you step out of that. I would imagine now it's different.
Yeah, because it's like consciousness and awareness. That's why I would definitely suggest to anybody. It's like know yourself, learn yourself. And I think the best way to know yourself and to learn yourself is in therapy.
Yeah.
Because most people in this world, they're not going to sit and listen to you for 50 minutes, cry your eyes out and share your deep. They're not going to do it.
And I have this saying, you know, we heal through the eyes of others. We need other people to see us, to walk us through our hurt, to walk us through our grief, our loss, our pain, like that. We need other people, you know, and it is hard to find those people that can do that with you. But I think, you know, starting in therapy or a coach or somebody that can walk you there through that can help you through that journey.
Yeah, and that's why, like I was saying about the book, you know, when the higher power dropped it into me and said their eyes were never on you. It was like, name it that. And I want you to go write a book about it so that you can understand it for yourself and so that you can help other people who may be struggling with this and may not have a word for it.
Can you go into a little bit more detail? Like if someone is struggling with this, what might be, how would they recognize it? How would they see it? How would they know they're struggling with self-addiction and not even realizing it?
I would say that they can't get their focus off of their survival needs out of themselves. Many didn't have parents who were focused on their needs, so we tend to hyper focus on our needs in a desperate effort to save ourselves. And so you're just constantly taking things personally, over and analyzing everything. And it's almost like, because our brains are all often giving us poison. It's like feeding us poison. Like, look at the way Dwayne is looking at me. And it's like, yeah, he was looking at me crazy. So it's like, you're just caught in this rumination, this analyzation, and all of it is just painful. And you're not living. You're not enjoying your life. You're not trusting that your needs are being taken care of, even if you don't do anything. And I'm not telling people not to do anything, but I'm just saying, just trusting that you're valuable and you're protected and you're okay and you're safe just on your own. And so if you don't feel that way, that you feel like you have to be a human doing instead of a human being, that is one of the telltale signs, I think.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Okay, so I had a question I was thinking about, and what I wanted to know from you, as you're dealing with this and you're going through this, when was the time that you started to be able to see that transition in yourself from kind of being in that self-addiction, in your trauma and all of that kind of self-focused to, I guess, this other space where you're seeing it from a bigger perspective. You're not caught in your own pain.
I would say when I read that book, Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw, and I started to do that deep emotional healing on a regular basis. And that is the first time where I started to see sunshine. I started to see myself being able to set boundaries. I started seeing myself being able to be present in life and to expand my horizon. And it was baffling to me. I'm like, it really works. Like when you really start to heal these emotional triggers, like it really, really works. And when I understood about the inner and outer critic, like I wasn't as clear that I'm criticizing myself and I'm criticizing other people. When I saw that cycle, and
Yeah.
it's like that wisdom and that understanding and that daily practice. It really works if you work it.
It works if you work it. And it's hard to get started. I think that's one of the things that keeps so many people stuck. I think maybe sometimes there's this underlying fear that if I actually challenge these beliefs, I lose my identity, I lose who I am, I'm going to lose something until it gets bad enough. You're like, I got to do the work. I don't really have a choice.
Yeah, there's some. I read something and it made such a great point. It said growth means doing things differently. When someone grows, they start to do things differently. You start to respond differently. And so I think that's when I realized that, wow, you've grown, because you would have cussed that person out. Or you would have not cussed that person out, because I just had to challenge somebody who kind of threatened me, and then I had to show up and kind of like get aggressive with them, and it felt like it was recovery. It didn't feel like it was maladaptive. It felt like, no, it's like in your authenticity, that person pissed you off, and you have a right to express your anger. And even that was like, you're doing things differently and you're growing. And I feel like that is my leading place right now, to do things differently. Even with this podcast, it was like, no, just get on there and be authentic.
That's right. Just be authentic.
Just be
That's
authentic.
the story we want to hear, right? That's what's really meaningful, is our authentic selves. And I'm glad you say that, because that's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast. Is I love connecting to people in their authenticity of their story and why they're here and why they do this. And I guess that leads to my next question, which is to ask you, like, okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to put this down on paper. What was the motivation to say, I've got to get this out there?
This may sound so crazy. I don't know if it does, but again, it was all higher power led. Like, it gave me the self-addiction and it said, write a book. And I'm really working on being obedient to my intuition, to my gut. And because a part of my self-addiction was expectations, like, oh, it gotta happen and it doesn't happen. And this way it's like, no, just follow the yellow brick road. Write the book. And the book was written so quickly till it scared me. Published, it was all done so quickly till it scared me. Then it said, now you got to promote it. Now Google some top podcasts and email them. And so now I sit here talking to you. And again, I feel like it's all higher power led, and it's all for my healing and hopefully for someone else's healing.
Yeah, I think you touch on something that's really powerful. You know, when I look at that, I look at like when we learn to trust our gut, we learn to let the universe lead. If that's our higher power, however we define that, right?
Yes.
You let the universe lead and you don't try and fight what's out there, and the things start to fall into place, and it's not that hard, but I guess it is hard letting go of that self-addiction and that pain and that hurt. I mean, that is hard to do, but once you cross over that plane, or I don't know how to describe it, but it starts to flow and it finds its way.
Well, that's what I'm trying to that's what I'm in the process of discovering, because I'm a recovering controller, as you know, with all of that trauma and with all that I've had. It's like control was my best friend. And so now I'm working on let it go. Just let go. Just do it. Just show up. Do your best. And then get back to your life. Look at the trees. Look at the flowers. Look at, you know what I'm saying? Like, get out of that self-addiction. Like, just enjoy life.
I totally get that. And I totally understand that. And I appreciate so much what you're saying. So what I like to do, Dwayne, before we wrap this up and we wrap up this conversation, is I always like to ask every guest one question. Maybe there's someone out there struggling with self-addiction and you could tell them one thing. What would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that freedom and healing is possible if they are willing to do the work, if they are willing to be authentic and vulnerable and show up to their lives.
Awesome. I love it, Dwayne. Awesome. Show up. You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it. Find you a great therapist like Dwayne Osterlind. And you good.
And you're good. Thank you, sir. All right. Where can people find you? They want to know more about you. They want to find your book. Where can they go?
Well, the best way to find me right now is at my website. It's www.author, like a writer, authorDwayneBarnes.com. You can also find me on my newsletters at dbrichking.substack.com and also on Instagram at Dwayne Barnes.
Awesome. I will put all of those links in the show notes as well, so you can just go to theaddictedmind.com and find them there. Dwayne, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. I want to thank you for taking the risk and reaching out and just coming on here and doing it and sharing your story and putting a book out there. It takes a lot of courage to do this. And so I just want to appreciate that. And thanks for coming on.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you do, man. I really, really love listening to you. You're doing amazing things. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Addicted Mind podcast. As always, you can find all the links and resources mentioned in today's episode in the show notes at theaddictedmind.com, so make sure you check them out. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might benefit from hearing Dwayne's story. It could make all the difference. And don't forget to click the subscribe button in whatever podcast app you're using. Subscribing ensures you get the latest episodes delivered straight to your podcast feed, so you won't miss a thing. And we'd also deeply appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review us on your podcast app. Your feedback helps others discover these stories of hope and transformation. And finally, I'm excited to share that you can now follow The Addicted Mind on Blue Sky. Be part of the conversation and connect with our community there. Just search for The Addicted Mind and give us a follow. All right, everyone, have an amazing day, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Addicted Mind podcast. Take care.
That was my heart, my truth, my journey. And I want to thank Dwayne Osterlind and The Addicted Mind for giving it space. If something in this episode stirred something in you, let that be your invitation. Your pivotal point might not come loud. It might come in a whisper, a mirror, a question. The courage to be starts there. If you're ready to go deeper, visit me at authordwaynebarnes.com or tap into the free ancestral meditation via the link in my bio. Let's keep growing, let's keep healing, and let's keep finding the courage to be.